It's a very warm welcome for this special edition of the Raw Rugby podcast, talking to the former England international halfback captain and now the Wallaroos coach, just about to embark on a exciting tour of the Northern Hemisphere and then the VX2 competition. Joe Yapp. Joe, thanks for joining us right now. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
It's kind of an exciting period of time as well. A tour, an overseas tour, they often talk about tours being a great opportunity to get closer to the group. Is that how you're viewing it 12 months out from the next World Cup?
Yeah, most definitely. Like you said, just to be able to tour as a side, you kind of those connections that you can make as well, but also just kind of getting ourselves set up. So in terms of the World Cup being in England next year, that travel and doing those long haul flights to Ireland, firstly, and to kind of like learn from that and get the players used to that, and having the games back to back and playing different teams, it kind of gives us a great opportunity a year out to sort of emulate what will be happening next year.
And you've had the last couple of weeks where you've been out in Western Sydney training with the group as well. What have you noticed over the last couple of weeks? Because the results were up and down for the first period of time. There's always going to be changes, a new style of play, so you can understand that. What have you noticed in recent times?
Yeah, well, like firstly, the camps were so valuable because, like you say, when we first started, you go into camp and then you're literally straight into a test match. So you don't get that opportunity to kind of work and really get to know the players as much. And these camps have allowed us to just really like strip back a little bit and just focus on the fundamentals rather than just the game prep, because we really want to kind of push the players from a physical perspective and a technical, tactical, and game understanding. So to be able to strip stuff back and be able to push them has been really good. And it's really kind of challenged them. It's challenged us, and it's been great to see the progress that they've made.
Before we get to a little bit more about that and the tactics and what you've discovered with the players, what have you discovered about moving over to Australia, moving your family down? It's a long way to come, and you're not a bad part of the world. I know you're a keen swimmer, so I'm sure you're enjoying this amazing weather in Sydney at the moment. But what have you noticed and found when you've come to Australia?
Well, firstly, like everyone's been like super welcoming. People within obviously RA and the people that I work with have been so supportive of us, both myself and our family, which has been amazing. We've settled now in South Caringbah. Both kids are at school. They've been there a couple of weeks, and we joined the local rugby team, Boronia, which both Megan and Jack have been playing for, and they've been amazing. They welcomed us, and both children have had the opportunity to be playing and getting to know that. So that's been really great as well for us as a family.
And you'd spent the previous few years coaching in the Premiership. What was it like when you come to Australia, where rugby kind of globally, I know the Wallabies particularly, the Aussie Women's Sevens side, they're respected worldwide for their name, but rugby on the whole in Australia doesn't seem like it's where it once was 20 years ago. What have you noticed coming from somewhere where English women's rugby has really taken off over the last 5-6 years up north? What have you noticed since coming down here?
Yeah, so I suppose, like you say, the rugby in England at the moment is on a real kind of on and up, especially around crowds and things like that. They're getting huge numbers in, which has been awesome to see. Obviously, the challenge here is kind of who you're competing with. Like in England, you're competing with football is one of the primary sports, and whereas here there's so much competition for players in terms of there's no lack of talent. There's so much talent, but it's obviously you're competing constantly for players, and obviously with rugby league in particular. So that definitely comes with its challenges, which is different to something that you would face in the UK.
And even from a media perspective, I listened to the BBC Rugby Union Weekly Pod with Chris Jones and Ugo and so forth, but they've done a great job growing women's rugby. And I'm curious, what have you noticed in terms of just the way that the game is covered? Like, is it chalk and cheese from and I know that it's grown in recent years. There's dedicated women's rugby pods now and so forth. But
Yeah.
what have you noticed when you've kind of come to media conferences and then you might have looked at the paper the next day? Like, is it a stark contrast there as well?
Yeah, it's difficult to kind of compare it, I suppose, from that perspective. In terms of the actual kind of that media side of it, you can see that there's certain people within the media that are really trying to drive rugby union, but there's probably just not the amount of coverage that you would get in the UK in comparison to what you would get here at the moment. And hopefully with the World Cup sort of less than a year away and then a home World Cup in 2029, like that's something, that we need to work really hard to sort of push and to kind of get, generate more interest and get more crowds in. And that's part of it, isn't it?
And have you noticed when you've gone to your local club recently that people know that you're the Wallaroos coach? And I wonder whether or not, there's always the parents that will yell out from the sidelines and throw their 2 cents. Are you one as well that will just every now and again?
No, I try very hard to not shout out and to stay quiet on the sideline. Yeah, I kind of tried to keep a low profile in terms of taking the kids to there, but I think when they asked Meg and Jack why have you come to England, and then they were like, oh well, my mum coaches the Wallaroos, so I think then they knew, so it was fine.
Right. Okay. Have they managed to get you down to the odd training session yet, or not?
Oh, well, to be fair, my husband has already started to help out coaching. He does a lot of coaching himself, so he's already sort of helping out. And I was asked to do something for them, but unfortunately it's when I'm in WXV, but otherwise I would have been more than happy to help out.
And typically, and I know this is changing, and thankfully it is, but typically, rugby's been coached by men. So you are a trailblazer in many respects. What's it like when you've got a husband that's coaching a little bit? Is he another person that will just throw their 2 cents, be a bit of a backseat driver when you come home, or do you kind of very much separate that?
No, he's pretty good. Like his kind of main thing has been around coach development and kind of the development side of the game in the UK. He used to work for the RFU over there, so he's kind of quite mindful of that, and sort of sometimes separating that sort of some of those conversations. But he's definitely a good source of support for me as well, so it's good to have him on side.
That's a high performance family for you if you want. There's been a big conversation in the men's side of things, particularly from a Super Rugby perspective, as whether or not Super Rugby is serving men's professional rugby in this country the way it needs to get the best high performance outcomes. What about from a women's perspective? Do you think that Super Rugby women's is serving the Wallaroos in the best outcome, or what have you noticed over the last 6 months? Is there little tinkerings that need to be done? Is 5 teams the ideal number? Would you like to see more to try to grow, or would you try to see less to be able to get more cohesion with the Wallaroos?
Yeah, no, like good questions. And over the last sort of probably 6 or 7 months since it's been around, it's been a big focus for us to build those relationships and to work with the Super W clubs, which I think has gone really well. Like we've created some really good connections, and we were all on a call recently to talk through the Australia A players in terms of who's going to be involved in that. And I think it's just really important from our perspective, because we don't, especially like in the last, you don't have loads of resources, there's not loads of us, so actually it's really important that we all work together, and that's generally been the conversation. And being able to for us to work together with them to get the best out of the players is massively important. And I think the more we can support their environments, like already now that all of them have got kind of full-time staff starting to happen in those environments, with obviously Mike at TARS this year, like he's in there, he's full-time working with the players. So we have a good relationship where like I can chat to him about players, and we've been going in and delivering, co-delivering sessions through this managed group block as well. So there's, I think, a real opportunity for us to kind of work more collaboratively to be able to support the players. And I think that's been going well, and something, you know, if we can get to a point where Super W have a full-time coach, full-time S&C and full-time medical, so they've got some really strong hubs there to support the players, I think that's a really good thing.
It's an interesting one because, and I'm sure Jaime Hernandez, the women's high performance manager, would have his own insights and feelings and probably planning these sorts of very questions. But if you're starting off a high performance environment, it's a fascinating one whether or not you would go with the super model, which is what has the men have operated with for 30 years or so. So I think it's a fascinating one. And we're even talking about, you know, Aotearoa and the women's program, and whether or not there should be crossover tournaments to try to best prepare the Aussie sides when they get to the international stage. The Aussie A program is a great one because it bridges, it allows for more games as well, particularly for the next tier. Is that a model you see being able to use? And then you can actually very much see who the next best players are to fill in and slip in seamlessly to your program at some point.
Yeah, I think the Aussie is massive for us. So there's some young players you'll have seen in that squad that have been performing well at Super W, and they've been in camp with us through some of the last blocks as well. And rather than them not have anything now, they've got an opportunity to take that and to be able to play for the A's. So the more kind of those pathway opportunities we can create for players to be able to, like you say, bridge the gap is really, really important for the program.
One person you had recently in your environment, Andy Friend, I believe he spent a bit of time with you recently in a camp. What's someone like an Andy offer, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so kind of, I suppose, originally I met with Andy when I was down observing one of the Brumbies sessions really early on in the Super W season, and just started chatting to him and just kind of really connected with him as a person and as a coach. Found him really interesting to talk to. So when obviously Matt Wilkie supports with coach development, and it was a conversation I had with Matt originally around sort of would be, you know, and he was offering that sort of support, and I said it'd be great to have Andy come in to the environment. I think he would be great to just have his insights and to support, and I suppose he's been a bit of a mentor for me as well, and now he's kind of supporting some of the program stuff also. And I just think his experience has been, you know, that he's had through his coaching journey and around the world is so valuable. And just having that somebody that sits slightly external to be able to observe and to feed in and to be able to have those conversations with has been great. And yeah, he's been really supportive of the women's game, really supportive of me. So it's been great having him in camp.
And I can imagine it's at times, probably much like any position of power, it can be lonely at times when things aren't going necessarily well and you feel like it's you against the world. What is that what it's about? Just being able to bounce ideas and have that extra sounding board who can challenge you both positively and maybe provide, you know, suggestions around where to take the program or a different way to see the game?
Yeah, I think any coaches, and I would say, and it's something big in England. I think we all need somebody, a mentor or somebody to be able to support and to bounce ideas off, no matter how far you are in your coaching journey, whether, you know, towards the end or the start. I think having that person that you can have the conversations with and you can have the honest conversations with, and be vulnerable with in terms of being, you know, open and honest. I think it's massively important for us to develop. Like, no one's the finished article, no one's the finished coach. So we talk to the players all the time about developing themselves. So we have to make sure that we're continuing to develop ourselves as coaches as well, to be the best version of ourselves for them. So someone like Andy is kind of been able to do that. And like you say, kind of just conversations and just to be able to bounce ideas off and to challenge. And I think it's hugely valuable.
So you're off on Friday, and then it's about a week or so before you take on Ireland and Belfast, and then Wales and Newport. You must be really excited about testing yourself against a couple of Six Nations sides that probably have had programs much more established than the Wallaroos have for a long time, who have just celebrated their 30th year anniversary from their first game. So what are you most looking forward to about those two games?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's just the opportunity to one, play different opposition. So the Wallaroos, obviously the majority of the test matches over the 30 years have generally been against New Zealand and stuff, and which is a challenge in itself. So to be able to go and to play different opposition that play a different way, and for us to challenge ourselves on that in terms of how we play against them, I think it's just really exciting to be able to do that, and for us to have the opportunity to do that, because these opportunities haven't come around very often before for this group. So to be able to do it is massive.
Yeah, somewhat of a historic tour, really, for the group, and at a particularly poignant time, a year out from the World Cup. The WXV2, some, and I think myself as well, thought, the fact that you were dropping down to that division rather than the number one would perhaps, signals where the game is at, but how much room to go. And it was a bit of a blow, perhaps. But if you spin it the other way, and which you were just saying around coming up against opposition, perhaps at a similar level, do you actually think that's a positive, that they might be able to build their structures, how they want to play, perhaps some confidence as well against similar opposition before flexing muscle against the likes of New Zealand and France and England later on?
Yeah, and as much as we were disappointed, we didn't set out to be in WXV2. But when you actually looked at it and took the emotion out of it, and in the cold light of day, WXV2 is a good opportunity for us. And you mentioned it before. These teams are well-established teams that have got full-time programs. So we cannot underestimate in any shape or form what the likes of Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and South Africa are going to bring. Scotland and Wales in particular, that we're playing either end of the tournament, they've been full-time for a long time now. And whenever we've played them as the Wallaroos, it comes down to the wire in those games. So these are really going to really challenge this group in terms of, what kind of where we're at. England and New Zealand, we know at the moment that they're ahead of most people, and then you've got kind of France and Canada in that mix as well. And they've established strong programs. They've been full time. They've got, they are ahead at the moment from a world perspective. But these are teams that we will really challenge it, and they will definitely challenge us, because I've seen firsthand the difference that being full time has made to these players. I had a number of them in my program when I was at Worcester, and I've seen the difference it's made to them. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see us to front up against them.
What about one of the big areas of growth was definitely the rolling maul and around the set piece. I know the men have had their own struggles at the set piece too, particularly the maul. Is it the sort of thing that you think can be solved overnight, or is it something that is a 6 to 12 to 18 month, learning, getting the right tools, the right people there? How quickly can you fix some of those elements? Because that's where the US and Canada really rips Australia apart.
Yeah, and I think, you said it yourself, it'll take time, because the experience that the likes of Canada and USA have had, that their experience has come from a lot of their players playing in the PWR, kind of, for the last few years, really, where they're playing with internationals all of the time. So they've really developed themselves and their game understanding by playing in that league. And that's a massive area for our players. And, to challenge them, and they don't come week in, week out. They don't have that challenge that the girls have when they're playing in the PWR. And obviously we're trying to develop and push Super W so that there is more challenge within there across those games. But the reality is at the moment that they're playing about 26 competitive games a year, and our girls are sitting around 16 and 17, and that's if they play every single game of everything. So, we're just behind there a little bit in terms of that experience, but it will take time. But there's definitely been growth already in that area. But we recognise it is an area that we've had to really focus on.
You've lent heavily on Arabella McKenzie at 10. You've gone away from Cara Stallinger since your time anyway. What is it about McKenzie that you like? And it's an exciting back line. It's just always about if you can get the ball and if you can aim up front.
Yeah, I think it's Fatala and Bella. Both of them, have been performing well. Both of them performed very well in Super W last year. So hence why we've gone with both of them. Bella's got that experience of, she's played in the UK. She's got kind of that real rugby experience, and you can really see that starting to develop in Tala as well. And Tala's a young player with a big future ahead of her. So yeah, exciting to see how she pushes on in this tournament too.
And what's success represent in the coming tournament? So there's 5 fixtures that you're going to be playing over the next 6-7 weeks or so. What is success for the Wallaroos?
Yeah, I think it's obviously we want to go and we want to win WXV2, and of course we do, like from a results perspective. But we're also like tracking loads of other things in terms of our development. Like this squad now is fitter across the board, is fitter now than it was when we took them on a few months ago after Super W. And that's, you can see that from the numbers, and so that's something we're continuing to work on, like in terms of our, like how we're defending and our like success around that, and how we're attacking and how we're looking after the ball. Like there's lots of other ways we're measuring our success as opposed to just the win-loss on field, and we have to keep tracking that because we keep talking back to World Cup 2025, and we have to keep showing that we're making progress, even if we don't always get that win-loss. But obviously, we are setting out to we want to win WXV2.
Well, I know that a lot of people back in Australia will be cheering on the Wallaroos too. So they kickstart against Ireland and Wales before that tournament, where they come up against Wales, South Africa, and Scotland. So a lot to look forward to. Joe, really good to have you on the Raw Rugby podcast and get to know you a little bit more. And we're excited about the year to come.
Cool. Thank you very much.